The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, this is Morgan with Monitronics. Just wanted to say welcome. Thank you for attending. This is going to be the final webinar of a series of 6. This webinar is going to talk about assembling your final marketing plan and budget. Within this series, we've covered the setup of your organization, programs to use, metrics, and now we're going to kind of tie everything all together and figure out how to put it in a budget that you can use. Again, all of the webinars are archived under the tutorial section in .NET, so please feel free to go back and rewatch any of those, and if you have any questions, let us know. All telephones are on mute, so if you have a question, you can either use the raise your hand option or you can type it in the chat box. Greg said he'll kind of glance over there and see if anything has been said and answer those as we go along. So I guess without further ado, Greg Brenneman from N2O Marketing, he'll go ahead and kick it off. Thanks, Greg.
Correct. Thanks, Morgan. How's everybody doing today? As Morgan said, these webinars are always tricky because they're not as intimate as we'd like. So kind of coming into it, your phones are muted. So if you're yelling out, hey, I have a question, and I'm not answering it because I can't hear you. So raising your hand or typing a question in the chat box at the bottom is the best way. And this session will be a little bit more probably dry than our others because this is kind of the mechanics of marketing, and we're going to take some real looks at some stuff, and I'm even going to give you a little gift at the end that we've put together for you that I think will help pull the whole series together. So I wanted to thank you for attending, and we'll just kind of get started. All right, we will each time we do a webinar, I do like to at least introduce myself because there's a lot of folks on today that have not been on some of our previous webinars. I'm CEO of N2O Systems, but my primary role is our marketing company as being the Chief Marketing Officer for our customers. So I work with a lot of security companies and help them with their marketing as far as strategy as well as programs that you do and things like that. So we have a unique position in the market in that we see really over 100 security companies that we work with right now, and so we kind of have a unique view. I used to run marketing for Monitronics. I was on the team that bought it from ADT and sold it to Stanley. We bought it for $125 million and sold it to Stanley for $275 million in 36 months. So it was a lot of fun, and after I left there, I started N2O, and also while I was there, I ran the dealer channel, so we had about 100 dealers. So I felt like my background being a $5 billion company initially working for Icon, then working for a $100 million company like Sonatrol, and then working with our dealers that many of them were small security companies, it gave us a unique view in that, marketing is really, really hard, and it's hard even in all three chairs. If you're on the big company chair, the middle company chair, and the little company chair, it's just more critical the smaller you get because your budgets are less. So that's one of the reasons we started N2O. We want to work, and we do work with the security industry, hundreds of companies from local, regional, national, and we also run a buying consortium where companies can buy leads and telemarketing and marketing services and whatnot. So that's a little bit of us, and the reason I even share that is I think having been in the security space for a while, for a long time, I can tell you there's a lot of people that come into this space that don't understand the industry. The security industry is an event-driven industry. Homeowners don't wake up in the morning and say, today's a good day to buy a security system. They wake up and they don't think they need one. They live in a bubble. And then, God forbid, an event happens, a move, they've been broken into, a friend's been broken into, they read about it in the paper, they panic, and they become somewhat irrational for a very finite period of time, sometimes 2-3 days, and then they make a decision, they sign a 3-year contract with somebody, and then they're off the market again. So it's a very, very tricky industry to market in. It's not like Coca-Cola where you'll drink a Coke today and maybe you'll have one after dinner and maybe one tomorrow. It's something that you have a very narrow window to catch somebody, and when you do catch them, oftentimes they're a bit emotional. So it's very tricky, and so a lot of marketing companies kind of breeze into our industry, and they're using anecdotes and things that have worked outside of our industry, and they just don't. So quite often we talk to companies that have been lots of war stories and battle scars from working and doing marketing things, and a lot of times it's just kind of what you expect coming into it. Is what you're going to get out of it if you know the right metrics, and that's why I think this series has been valuable. You know, in this series, we've tried to cover, we've covered looking at your business. You know, we've kind of built it incrementally, and we started back in September, and so this is the 6th month of doing these, and so today we're going to kind of culminate it all into the final budget that you would actually put together. And so I thought it'd be at least good to start with a recap, because I know a lot of folks, like I said, are here and haven't been on the webinars before, and so this will kind of guide you as you're kind of looking at this big list of webinars. If you want to watch the replays, they're all posted on Monitronics.net or our site as well. These are kind of the skinny on each. So the first one we did back in September was growing your business with limited funds, and what we did in that one is we really looked at, you know, you're a new dealer, you're starting out, you're trying to figure out, you know, how do I scale, how do I grow, right? And you got to make some choices. You got to say, well, my sales strategy either needs to be inside sales, or I'm going to kind of mimic a call center and try to grow centrally, or outside sales, where I'm going to hire salespeople and we're going to door knock and we're going to kind of dominate my local market, but then how do I scale beyond my local market? So we looked at both, and we looked at best practices, and if you're going to go down one path or the other, what are things you should think about? What are metrics and things like that. So we spent our first month looking at just, you know, how do you set up a sales organization. So now that you've built the monster, how do you feed it? And that's what was the next month. We said, well, all right, you got your team in place, you need leads. So we looked at the top the top 6 lead generation programs. We looked at email, we looked at direct mail, we looked at paid search, we looked at search engine optimization, we looked at telemarketing, and then we looked at pay-per-lead programs. And those are kind of the biggies. Those are the ones that move the needle, and we call them lead generation, and we break them out of marketing because they actually have a very clean product that is yielded from them, which is a lead, which is the quickest way to tie it back to revenue. So from there, we then took a kind of a different slant. We actually looked at marketing as a whole. And we looked at all the programs that you do in a marketing organization. We broke them into what is we typically call promotional things that tout your brand and tell people what you're about. And we looked at them as event-based. And we looked at things that are triggered by things. We're in an event-driven industry, so it's important that you obviously look at event and focus on event-based marketing programs. So we looked at that in that webinar, and we looked at metrics around them. The 4th month, we actually spent some time on 2 of the hot things that people like to talk about, so we kind of wanted to give you a view of our take on it. We looked at paid search versus organic search, and which is the better investment, and should you do both? How do you do it? What's the right ratio? And we looked at pros and cons, and we looked at Google, we looked at Bing, and we looked at Facebook, because those are the big 3. And we compared the yield from those if you were to spend money in that camp. And then the 5th month, we focused on the social media part, which is if you're a security company, there's a lot of social media choices. I would say the general feeling in the security industry of dealer owners is that it's a waste of time, social media, but it's kind of hard to ignore a lot of the signs on the road of how fast they're growing and how common use they are. So we looked at Facebook, we looked at Twitter, we looked at Google+, we looked at LinkedIn, we looked at blogs, and then YouTube as a way to grow your brand and attract customers. So that was what we did last month. So here, now we come to this month. With assembling a marketing budget, you know, you got all the pieces. We've laid them out, marketing, we've laid out lead gen, we've laid out all the search and social media pieces, and we've looked at your structure. And now we're going to pull it all together in a marketing plan and a budget. And these are things that I don't see the dealers do, and you need to do them. And I think the reason dealers don't do them, well, they do them, but they do them only when they have to. But I think there's a light version of these that can be used as a planning tool so you can get a better sense of what you have and what you don't. So we're going to go through that today. So what is a formal marketing plan? Let's just kind of start at the top. A marketing plan, a formal one, and the reason I'm calling it formal is when people out there say, hey, you got a marketing plan, they're expecting a formal one, not something that you've kind of jotted down on a napkin. So especially if you're going to get investor money, they always usually require that. So it's a detailed and very researched report that is used mainly internally, but oftentimes it's done for the investment community. I believe that every organization should have one of these on file. I don't think you have to do them every year. I mean, if you're just got nothing else to do, then knock yourself out. But I think you at least need one on file, because it does show that you really have a purpose and a mission, and that you're kind of going on this track, and everyone's on the same page. And this document is that. A piece of the marketing plan is actually the mission statement. And what happens is a lot of times people just yank that mission statement out and wave that around, but that's just a nice thing to have, but it doesn't tell you what you're about and how you're going to get it done. And the marketing plan lets you do that. So what does it do? So it forces you as your organization to understand the results of your past marketing decisions, and it also forces you to have a fresh look externally of what's going on in our space. There's a lot of things going on with home automation and the ability to interact with your system through mobile devices and wireless and cellular, and there's just a lot of things that are impacting it and changing the rules a bit. You've got new entrants coming in from cable companies and phone companies, and a lot of things moving around. So we're an old industry. It's not uncommon to sit there next to a guy in your company that's been there for doing this for 30 years, and that's a valuable thing, but it can also be dangerous, because you could think this industry is changing so quickly that if you kind of go by the mantra, well, I've done this for 30 years, I know the deal, that can be dangerous. You have to always be kind of looking at what the future holds and how the road in front of you is going to change, and not just looking at the road that you're on. The last thing is it really helps the future direction and helps all of your employees really understand why you do what you do and what you're about, and get on the same page and support you in that. So that's the formal marketing plan. The reality is most dealers don't have a written plan, and if they do, it's not well thought out, and most of them follow a trial and error. I mean, it's not uncommon for us to get in a conversation with a dealer, and they're like, hey, well, I did some direct mail, and that didn't work, and then I did this, and that didn't work, and I did this, and that didn't work, and none of this stuff works. It's like, well, you can't really take that attitude. If nothing works, then maybe you're in the wrong business. You gotta have the right expectations of a marketing campaign, of what it is, what it costs, and what it should produce. And it is what it is. And if it doesn't produce, do something else. So, when we see people do this, it's part of an annual plan, or they want to. A lot of times they'll do this plan when they want to introduce a new product. They say, okay, I want to go to a new market. Like I'm going to go to Austin. I'm in Houston right now, but I'm going to go to Austin. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, let me put together a plan, right? We need people, we need leads, we need, so it forces you to kind of think like a marketing person, and the plan is a way to do that. And as I said earlier, it's a big piece for funding. So the basics of a plan, and the most formal of a marketing plan typically has 6 pieces. The first one is your purpose and mission, and I am way oversimplifying this. The typical marketing plan is about 50 pages long, and not double spaced with a 14-point font. I mean, I'm talking about an actual well thought out, well written, 30 to 50 page document that actually analyzes everything. So I'm way oversimplifying it, but at least when you understand conceptually how to do it. So, and I'm not going to take you through the entire process today either, because I'm sure many of your phone will want to shoot yourself. So the purpose and mission is really defining what you're about. Why are you in the business? What's your purpose as a company? What's your mission statement? And that's typically a paragraph or 2. This is the hard part, the situational analysis. What's really going on? What are the players? Who's coming in? What's going on? What's going on in the market? What are the strategy objectives that you're going to implement, and what will you do, and how will you impact that? What are the programs themselves, and what are the actual things that you're going to knock out? So how will you do it? So what will you do, and how will you do? How you do it, and then the budget. So what's it going to cost, right? And then how are you going to manage the performance and implementation of it, and then any considerations that you have. So those are kind of the 6 ingredients of a traditional marketing plan if you were asked by an investment community to do that. And that's about all I'm going to say about the traditional plan, because I've obviously I've found a way, I think that's a streamlined version, but I've also found a really good article on this methodology, and it's called Know This, and that's the link. And I was going to just kind of kick over here real fast if I can find my web browser and show you. Let me close my email. I'll do that right now. And here's the website, and you can see here that it tells you how to write the marketing plan, and these are all the pages. So it tells you how to break down the analysis, how to figure out your market, your distributor network, competitors, summary, and this is very detailed, and I thought it was excellent. So if you're looking to create a formal marketing plan, I recommend, hang on, let me get back to where I was here. I recommend this this link. Now, don't feel like you have to scramble and write this big long URL down. This presentation will be posted. A PDF of it will be posted on our website at the end, and I'll give you the link to that so you can pull it off then. So what do I recommend? I use the GOSPA method, and to me it's less work for one, and this is something I use every year, and it's a pyramid in that your goal is supported by your objectives, which is supported by your strategies, which is supported by your plans, which are supported by your activities. So for every goal that you have, there's a separate pyramid. So, and usually you have one goal, and then the activities kind of branch off. So I'm going to give you some examples of how you use this. And remember, today we're going to talk about the marketing plan. We're going to talk about the marketing budget. So right now we're talking about the plan. So this is the structure of the plan that we usually use. So let me explain how this all works. So with GOSPA, the goal is a specific, long-term, measurable goal that's bound to some time frame. So a good example is I need to do $1 million of revenue in 2012. That's a goal, right? You may have other goals. Most companies won't have more than 1 or 2 goals, sometimes maybe 3, but like 1 or 2 goals is typically plenty because it'll keep you plenty busy unless you're a bigger company. So that's your goal. I'm going to get $1 million of revenue in 2012. So how do you do that, right? I mean, everybody wants that, you know, rock and roll. But how do you do the rest of the stuff? How do you make that happen? Well, you make that happen. First step is your objective. So it refers to your interim goals that you're going to have to accomplish to achieve the main goal. So a good example would be, to do $1 million in revenue, I need to generate about half that from new customers and about half that from my existing base, right? So, you know, you're top of your pyramid. Now you've branched off. So I'm going to generate half that target through new customers, right? So let's go on that trail. We're going to leave the other objective for its own little tree on the right. So say you're going to get half your revenue from existing customers, that would have its own strategies, plans, and activities, right? So let's go down trail A. So I'm going to get half that from new customers. So what are the strategies? So the strategies are the initiatives that you have to take to get your objectives. So to get 50% of my revenue from new customers, I need to find new customers, and one way, for instance, could be joining a pay-per-lead program to get new leads, right? That may be a strategy that I'm going to take. You could have 4 strategies, 5 strategies, 10 strategies that you're going to do to get 50% of your revenue from new customers. You know, you may do pay-per-lead. I'm going to launch this or that, or I'm going to launch. You know, so you can have all kinds of strategies that you're going to implement. And then the plans are the steps you're going to take, and the activities are the tasks. So, and typically a lot of people refer to those together. So, you know, so let's say you're going to join a pay-per-lead program. One of the plans could be, well, I'm going to look at N2O as a vendor to do that, for instance. I'm just throwing that out. You may also look at another company, or you may look at this. So there may be 2 or 3 plans that you have to help you join your pay-per-lead program. And then what are the activities? Well, those are the tasks. So I need to call Greg on Thursday. I need to meet with my team at 10 o'clock. I need to build a landing page. So those are all the tactical stuff that has to be done. But you can see how powerful this could be, because when we walk into, a lot of times, dealers, they have the goal and they have the activity, but they don't have the middle. And that's what kills you. You know, it's like, hey, I want to do $1 million. Well, how are you going to do it? Well, I got a whole list of stuff. Well, okay, but it's not strategic. So if you can force your thinking into this method, I think you'll find that it's a good use of time, and it's very productive, and it forces you to consider all of the pyramid components. So that's the GOSPA method. And once you kind of are thinking that way, as you think about revenue planning, this is called a revenue walk, and this is typically what we used in private equity discussions and things like that. And this is a way to visually show them. So let's say you're a $450,000 company, and your plan is to be a $1.4 million company. Those dollar amounts, the reason you're saying I'm going from 450 to 1.4, that may be a goal, right? I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this goal. This goal is going to be accomplished through implementing my 3 objectives, right? So I'm going to do $400,000 through new customers, and I'm going to do $350,000 through existing customers. I'm going to do $200,000 through a new channel, right? So those are your objectives. That's why they're down here at the bottom. And then your strategies are, remember, these aren't the tasks, these are the steps. So to get this $400,000, these are the main things. We're gonna do a pay-per-lead program. We're gonna implement a mail program, and these are your lists. But this is a really nice way to show that you understand your business and you know where your revenue is going to come from, and you know what buckets are important, and that you have to push all 3 buckets at one time to make it happen. So this is a really powerful way to force yourself into thinking about your growth potential. So that's the plan. Let me just double check. Are there any questions about the plan, the marketing planning? I don't see any questions. So that's good. All right. So we'll just keep rolling right along. So let's talk about the budget. So the budget is the part. Why do you even create a budget? Well, the reason you need the budget, one, is so you can forecast your costs by month. Most CFOs are going to want it anyway. I'm sure any investors are going to want it. And most companies do have a formal piece of their master budget that you as a marketing person would own. And that is typically a separate thing. What I'm going to teach you today about is how you should think about a working budget. And what I mean by working budget is a budget that you use as an individual to plan your business and get a sense of how you do things. And this is a living, breathing document that you probably would carry around with you in your briefcase or whatever, because this is something that you use. Now, how you grab the key numbers off this document I'm going to show you and drop it on your master budget is a CFO or it's a completely separate gig. So I'm not implying that that this would be your master budget. This is a working budget that you could use as an individual. So so here's just some comments before we get going on too far. It's a planning tool, like I just said. We like Excel just because it has all the calculations in there. And this allows you some 3 kind of philosophies, to spend more money on what works and spend less on what does not. It sounds simple, but most people don't actually think that way, unfortunately. They just keep spending and they don't really measure, they don't know if it works or not. And then also majoring on the majors and minoring on the minors. It's really easy to get caught up in, I was in a meeting one time and we got so caught up in the response rate of a email campaign. I'm like, guys, this is a minor. We need to major in the majors. We should be doing like 30 of these. We shouldn't get so caught up in the one we did and trying to dissect it so much. So you got to kind of focus on the big stuff. And then roughly right now is better than perfect later. You can budget yourself to death. You can spend so much time screwing around with this stuff that you don't ever actually get out of the starting block. So get close, get roughly right, but just do something. So that's what we're going to look at today. So, not too far. So let's first talk about budget benchmarks. So as we talk about what do you budget, let's first start with how much should you budget. And we talked about this way back in the very big first webinar, and we talked about how much should you spend on marketing. And this is an area that there's probably, gosh, if you posted this on a board somewhere, you'd have 50 different ways of budgeting marketing, and most of them are way too complicated and confusing. And I typically operate by more of a simplistic view of this all, and I look at it as just a percentage of revenue. And if you're a big company, the multi-billion-dollar company, you're not going to spend 12% of your marketing or your revenue on marketing. You're going to, I think at Icon we were about 0.5% or 1%. But it's a $5 billion company, so. If you're mid-size or mature, or you're small and mature, what I mean by that is you've been around for 20 years, you've got a healthy base of RMR, and you're looking to grow moderately. You don't want to take a lot of big risks. You just want to kind of continue to grow the business. That most of the people we deal with are in startup mode, and you may not technically be a startup, but you're operating in a startup entrepreneur spirit where you got to do something. You're on this treadmill, you're going crazy. You got to get out of the starting blocks. And I always view it as a conservative, which is a 5%, or a more aggressive 12%. And so we're going to look at those 2 camps separately. And as we talked about on the invite, at the end of this, we've prepared a budget for you. And I'm going to take you through it today, and it's something that is available to you afterwards. If you want to come to the site, you can download it. We'll have a copy of this presentation, a recording of this presentation that you can watch back if you want to unpack it, and then we'll actually have the Excel file that you can have and play with that. I think it'll help you. And our premise in this is we just started with a dealer that has $500,000 in revenue. So it's not really a startup, but it's somebody that's got a foundation and they're trying to grow upon it. So I'm going to instead of trying to walk you through this eye chart, I'm actually going to kind of shift gears and jump over here to Excel. And this is the actual budget that you're going to get a copy of. So here's how it works. And we're going to look at down here I call it slow growth, high growth, but it's really moderate growth. It's you want to be a little more conservative. Money's tight. You don't really have a lot of money to spend on marketing. So this is the angle I would take. And then high growth is, okay, we got some investment. I'm going to grow this thing, and this is I got a little bit of money, and this is how I'm going to spend it efficiently. And the way this budget works is it's pretty simple. I mean, these are all formulas, but it's by category. So you're looking at your marketing department. You're looking at your marketing functions. A lot of times these are called marketing communication, but these are typically brand building things. And then you have your lead generation stuff, and then you kind of have your other category, and it all rolls out to a marketing budget. So you can see down here, this is a field. So I put in my revenue. I'm a $500,000 dealer. So you can see here, this does the calculation for you up here. You can see in the formulas. But if you're in the moderate growth plan, that means your marketing budget should be $25,000 a year or $2,000 a month in marketing. And that's a 5%, spending 5% of your revenue on marketing. And you can see this budget I put together for you is a $25,000 budget. So you'll get a sense of this one is a moderate growth budget. On the high growth, I put together a $60,000 annual budget. That's $5,000 a month, and that's spending 12% of your money on marketing. So that's this other tab we're going to look at in a second. And then, so this actually calculates of that number what percentage is it. So that's all that is. So you have your actual categories here, and then it's by month. Let me go. Oh, hey, hang on here. Let me go up. It's by month, and you can see on the right. So in general, most of the dealers that we talk to do not have a marketing department at all, and so they outsource everything. So this budget is one. I'm presuming if you can only spend $2 grand a month on marketing, you probably don't have anybody. Now, as you add headcount, I typically look at headcount. The logic of adding a person is to remove costs out of what you outsource. So if you're spending a couple $1,000s a month with a vendor and they're doing things, then at that point, if you can hire somebody to do it, they should also take that burden. They should remove that money, should shift over into your headcount. So you have to kind of view it as a scale. So as you hire people, they have to pay for themselves. And otherwise what happens is we see that a lot of dealers fall in this mistake where they hire somebody, but they don't know how to do anything. It's kind of like, it's like hiring a general contractor and expecting to put your carpet and flooring in. They don't really know how to do that. So what does a general contractor do when you hire them? Well, they go get guys. They go get a floor guy and a drywall guy and a framer and all that. And the problem is that if you take all your money and hire the general contractor and you don't leave any money for the flooring guy, the drywall guy, you're not going to get much of a house. So either you need to be the contractor and you work with an outsourced vendor that is the drywall guy, the carpet guy, the tile guy, or you need a lot more money if you're going to hire somebody and they don't have any of the direct skills. So when we hire marketing people, in the previous lives, I always look for people with design experience and writing experience that have things that they have to do. They're not just there to manage the whole flow. They're there to actually do stuff. So I'm going to put that caveat out there. So let's talk about the building blocks of a moderate growth budget. I think in general, and you can plug into here whatever you want, an average Yellow Pages budget. Some people, they get the little ad. Some people get the big ad. I mean, just whatever you pay, you have to figure that out. You know that. But in general, I do still think that you got to be in the Yellow Pages, especially in a local market. I think people open up the Yellow Pages and they look at it just to see that you're credible and real. And it probably wouldn't be as bad if our industry wasn't full of trunk slammers and people that aren't really legitimate business people, and it does have, even door-to-door has a little bit of a stigma with, is this person even really work for an alarm company? So there is a little fear factor in there, and so I think being in the Yellow Pages gives you some credibility. Let's talk about trade shows. I'm not a big fan of trade shows. I think they're good. I think one a year. If I'm watching my money, I'm going to one a year. Because I think you got to stay plugged into what's going on in the industry. You got to network. You got to understand what's coming out. But you can also spend a lot of time at trade shows. So you got to pick wisely. And I always look for trade shows that are where I can meet potential customers. So if I'm selling commercial security systems and I may want to go to ASAs or something where I know there's customers there. I've never been as big of a fan of hobnobbing with other people in the industry as I am trying to out get some revenue. As far as other stuff you see right here, search engine optimization, direct mail, paid search, printing brochures, collateral, PR, sponsoring local sponsorships, the junior league, the little league, team, putting your, Chico's bail bonds on their shirt. All these things, I think at this point, if money's tight, I would not spend money in those areas because it adds up so quickly. I would focus down on lead generation primarily. And so what we did in this particular budget is we put in a pay-per-lead program, and I just used some pricing that we do. I mean, if you were a dealer at one of our programs and you were getting 50 leads a month, average lead price is $25. So you're generating $12.50 a month in the pay-per-lead program. So it's just, here's a sample. If you're not in a pay-per-lead program, you could actually go up and plug things in here. But my point is that you got to kind of pick and throw here what you want. And then the customer referral program. I mean, I'm a big believer in that. I think asking your customers, for referrals and giving them a little, $50 or $100 or some discount on RMR, whatever you do. But I think using your customers to tell their friends about you in a formal customer referral program is a must-have. I mean, it's stupid not to do that. I mean, people love to buy. Matter of fact, the highest closing rates you get in marketing is through your customer referral program. So you need to put a budget in for that. And, $200 a month may sound light, but, that's just an escrow number. The number is really $2,400. So you may find that you go 2 months and you don't get any referrals, but then, in April you get 5. So, you got to manage to that annual number. And then other, postage, telephone, travel. These aren't things that you really need as a working marketing budget. Travel, I did link back to the trade shows, so obviously $25 isn't going to get me to a trade show, but $300 if I go to one will. If you're shopping your airfare and you go to a close show, but we did put these in place because there are expenses that flow in a marketing department, and these also, typically these fields are found in the larger financial budget, so we did put them in here for you. So this is, if I was going to be a moderate growth player and I was going to spend 5% of my revenue on marketing, this is how I would spend it because this has a yield. And I'm going to explain the budgets first, and then I'm going to explain how all this works. So that's your slow growth budget. So let's talk about high growth budget. This is the one that's the 12%. Advertising Yellow Pages, same thing. We already talked about that. SEO. Now, search engine optimization. I mean, I know our program is about $750 a month. I know a lot of people are about that. You can see search engine optimization services out there that are cheaper, but they don't really move the needle. It's a hyper-competitive industry, and it takes a lot of elbow grease to actually get traction and get your website to show up higher. So if that's a budget, and that may be something that you, at some point you want to hire somebody to do, you can do that. But that's where I would budget the money. Direct mail. This is a monthly budget, but it's really a $3,000 line item. You can see, I just plugged into here, doing 2 mailings a year. With the $1,500 each mailing. So we're going to kind of talk about this next. So I put in a direct mail piece because I do think direct mail is a great way to reach new homeowners because you can buy the list pretty cheaply. It's a great way to stand out. I know a lot of the big companies use direct mail quite a bit. So that's something we do recommend. Paid search is good. It's something where you get clicks from that, and especially if you keep your target words around local. So if you're in Houston and you're putting, home security in Houston, I think we've looked at other webinars how to do that, so we won't go through that now. But I think $1,000 a month is a good budget. I think I've worked at companies. I've worked with companies that are, $20, $30 million companies that spend $3,000 a month. When I was at Central, I think we spent about $10,000 or $12,000 a month. And I know the big guys spend even more than that. I mean, way more than that. So to give you an idea, $1,000 a month is actually not a lot, but it's enough to get your brand out there local. And the reality is if someone sees your ad and clicks on you and comes to visit you, you have a pretty good shot at closing that because you're not competing with anyone else. So we do recommend a paid search piece. PR is one of these things where I like quarterly PR, and specifically what I like are press releases that talk about that you're in that market, because you can actually tailor a press release to a city, so you can send it to all the publications in Houston, and it gets indexed by Google, and it helps your ranking of your site, but it also gets your brand out there. It gives you things that can be can be sent out to the industry publications and local newspapers, and it's a way to just keep top of mind with people, and it also, you know, if you do a press release, it lives out there online, and so if someone's searching you, they'll see you're doing press releases, and it makes them feel a little bit better that you're a established local provider. Trade shows, even with a big budget, I would still only go to one a year. I'd pick one and just go with it, and maybe you alternate each year, maybe go to a different one next year. But I still think they're a tough one to really get a clean ROI on. So I've never been a big fan of just going to trade shows all the time. Local sponsorship, I think, is you really want to make your marketing community. Most local dealers are involved in their community and sponsor something, you know, locally. I wouldn't spend a lot on it, but I think it's a way to kind of keep your name out there local. If I was going to spend a little more money, I would probably go with a bigger market. I would go with a lead generation program, like a pay-per-lead program, more at like 75 leads a month, and that's the line item allocation, and I would still also do the customer referral program. So you can see with this budget, travel did not change because we left the trade shows like they were. So you can see with this budget, that is a 12, let me just go over here, that's a 12% of your revenue is spent on that. Now, let's say you go in here and you say, well, I'm a $200,000 dealer. Well, you can see now you're spending 30% of your revenue, so that this budget probably wouldn't be a good one for you because it's going to tank you. Let's say you're a $750,000 dealer. You can see it's only 8%. So, you know, you got to find the right. You got to be aggressive, but you don't want to be stupid either, right? You don't want to overextend yourself and spend too much money on marketing stuff that you can't afford. So that's why we try to give you a range of, if you're watching your money, you may want to go one direction. If you're not watching your money, you may want to go another direction. So the question becomes, I'm going to go on to the metric part. Let me just double check, see if we got any questions, or if I'm covering them all. I think I'm covering them all. All right, we're good. Nothing in the chat box. So, all right. So let's move on. Let's go to the metrics part. So what is this? How does this all culminate? And I mean, obviously we've talked about how do you spend money, but how does it return back to you? So this can be a bit of an eye chart. So I'm doing it, and I'm going to walk you through it the same way. So this is our moderate growth. I put them both on one screen. So we're going to look at the moderate growth line, then we'll look at the high growth. So let's look at the moderate growth. So let's say, and you can play with this all you want, but let's say you're doing your Yellow Pages ads and you're getting 5 leads a month, which some people I've talked to get more than 5 leads a month. Some people I've talked to haven't ever gotten a single lead from Yellow Pages. So this can vary widely, but if you're getting 5 leads a month, I just carried this over from our budget right here, so this is just cut and paste right from the budget. So your spend is $6,000. So what is 5 leads times 12 months out of the year? That's 60 leads annually, right? So what is your closing rate? Well, if somebody saw your name in the Yellow Pages and calls in, your closing rate is actually pretty good because they're reaching out to you. You could argue, and you probably know anecdotally, well, we typically close 20%, 30%, whatever, but I've seen typically a 30% close rate if people are reaching out to you. So if you're closing 30% of 60 deals, that's 18 sold deals, right? Well, that makes your total lead cost per deal $333. Right? So how does that work? Well, what's your average deal size? Well, if your average deal size, so when you sell a system, how much revenue do you get, right? Well, it's $500. So $500 is my average deal size. Well, that means that my revenue is $9,000 on the 18 deals I sold, and if I subtract my revenue by my spend, that's $3,000. Now, we're only looking at your marketing costs at this point. We're not getting into the cost of your equipment and labor and all these other things. So you'd have to kind of play with that, but your ROI, which is, you know, what's your return on investment? So how much, you know, you spent $6,000 and you made $3,000 in profit. So your ROI is 50%. So you made 50% of what you spent back, right? So that's okay. It didn't pay for it with your profit, but it's still a decent ROI. Ideally, 100% is good because at least you made your money back on the profit side. Now, like I said, if you really want to take this to the next level, if you give this to a CFO, they're going to take this front-end part and they're going to put in all the rest of the expenses and give you a margin number, and that's really the one you'll manage your business by. But this just gives you an early warning sign of, you know, whatever number you want to use as an RMR. Going on to trade shows, let's say you come home from that one trade show and you got 20 business cards in your pocket from real customers. Let's say you go to ASDA's and you're selling commercial security and you met 20 people that are good. Now, if you're going to as-is, your deal size would be bigger at $500, but just for fun, let's say there was a homeowner show and you met 20 people that could buy a system. You can see how that works, right? $1,500 spend to go to the show, got 20 business cards, close 30%, following the same logic that you've talked to them, you've shaken their hand, you may actually find that you close more than that. That's 6 sold deals. Your total lead cost per deal is $250. And just let me stop there for a second. The lead cost per deal metric should be one that you're familiar with. And in fact, most of the security companies that we deal with, the bigger they are, that metric has become critical to them. And most of them will tell me, if I can keep my lead cost per deal below $400, I'm a happy camper, because that is really all the rest of the things you really you kind of got to have. It's just this lead cost thing is a really good way to measure it. And so obviously the lower lead cost per deal you can get, the better. And then so average deal size, revenue, profit. And so your ROI is you've spent $1,500 and you've got $1,500 of profit. So it actually paid for itself. So it's 100% ROI. So following lead generation, let's just kind of go down the list here. So you get 50 leads a month. That is a $15,000 spend. That's 600 leads annually that you're getting from the pay-per-lead program. The average closing rate in at least our pay-per-lead program is about 10%. So you're generating 60 sold deals. Your total lead cost per deal is $250, which gives you $30,000 of revenue, $15,000 of profit, so it pays for itself. Now, and then you go down to the customer referral program. If you were to, just throw this out, let's say, you had statement stuffers and you're out there talking to people and you find you get about 5 leads a month. Some guys get more. It just really depends. But let's say 5 leads a month. That's 60 leads annually. Closing rate when it's a referral program is typically the highest. We typically have seen 35, even 40% if it's a customer referral, just because word of mouth is so strong. And in that, your total lead cost per deal is excellent. You can see it's $114. That's probably the best. That's why I'm always, look at your ROI, 338% ROI. I mean, you can't beat that. So that's why I always say, if you don't have a customer referral program, you're crazy. And so when it's all said and done, that's the budget, right? $25,000 budget, generating 740 leads. Your total closing rate between all of your closing rates is 14%. Gives you 105 sold deals. Your lead cost per deal average is $237. So as a whole, your programs are in line, and you're seeing a total ROI of 111%. But what's cool about this is, for a 5% spend on marketing, you're actually getting a profit of $27,000 on your marketing, at least marketing profit. So that's kind of a cool way. So let's look at how this works when you spend a little bit more money and how it changes it. So we already looked at Yellow Pages, so let's look at SEO. Now, initially, you will not get 20 leads a month. You just won't. SEO is one of these things you got to it's a snowball. You got to pay into it, and you may go 6 months and not get any leads, and all of a sudden you start to get a couple, right, and a couple more. And what happens is, all those dollars you spent for 6 months, you do get them back, but it may take up to a year to get it back, because you're starting to rank. And now every time you're getting a click, you're not paying for it. You're actually getting it organically. You're getting it for free. So it's one of these things where it should not be unrealistic for you to expect 20 leads a month out of your own website. I've talked to dealers. I talked to a dealer at one point, and he was getting 3,000. He's a big dealer, but he was getting 3,000 leads a month off his inbound from just being shown online. Now, it was an aggregate of search engine optimization, paid search, TV ads, radio spots, things like that. But it's out there, and this was only in one market. So my point is that it's not unrealistic that you should get some leads. 20 a month I don't think is unrealistic. But you can see even at 20 a month, you're spending $9,000. That's 240 leads annually, and you can see the ROI down there is 167%. For direct mail, you can see here, if you do 2,000 cards, the average response rate on a well-targeted direct mail piece, if it's targeted to the area, especially if you're leveraging that you're local and making that tie, and then making sure your card is bigger so it sticks out over all the bills and gets their attention, it's not uncommon to get a 5% response rate. So let's say you get 100 leads out of that response rate. You can kind of see how that math takes you all the way down to a 150% ROI. On the paid search, let's talk about that for a second. This is an area that's you got to be careful. We spent a whole webinar on it, so I'm not going to regurgitate that. But at the highest metric, a $5 click. I would never spend more than $5 a click. And you know what? That means a lot of words you're not going to be on page one. But the problem is you can easily spend $30 a click, and the math will just destroy you. But if you limit it to $5 a click, and you were to get 2,400 clicks, which that's just basically dividing $12,000 by $5 is 2,400. So generate, because you're only paying per click. So 2,400 clicks, and that's just people to get to your website, right? So now they're on your website. What's the average conversion to a form? And I've typically seen about 10% people that are out there. Some people have gotten way less. It just depends how engaging your site is. It depends how often you have a form that they can fill out and how simple the form is. I mean, you're asking for a bunch of information, or you're just getting their basics so you can reach out to them. So all of those factors determine if they're going to fill out your form. But let's say you get a 10% do that. That's 240 leads. So if you just do the math, 240 leads, closing rate on paid search, let's go with 15%. You can kind of plug in whatever your metrics are, and you can see that that's about a 50% ROI. So paid search is kind of tricky, but it is nice because it does create leads for you. So let's look at trade shows. We looked at that earlier, so I won't go back to that. At this point still, unless you're bigger, I don't really recommend spending a lot of money on collateral. I tell you, we build stuff all day long that is high-resolution PDFs. The dealers have them on their website. They email them out, and they'll even buy a nice laser printer, color laser printer from Office Depot or Best Buy or something, and they'll print them out on some nice hammer mill paper, and it looks very presentable if they're going on an appointment. And I think we're in a day and age where it's probably okay not to spend a lot of money on brochures and stuff because you really don't get that money back. So if you can print it as you need it, it's always better. So I didn't put any money in for printing, and in this model too, I did not, actually I think earlier I plugged in PR, but I think here I did not, but I'll have to check that. But trade shows still we left in, but in general, PR and local sponsorships are always hard to measure. I don't know anybody that's ever said, well, I did a press release and I got 6 leads, because what happens is they read the press release, then they go to your website, and they fill out the form. So a lot of times it's harder to track that. If you find a way, there are technologies that allow you to do that, but that's incremental dollars as well. So let's go down to lead generation. So in this model, we bumped it up to 75 leads a month on a pay-per lead program, generating 900 leads annually. It's still at that 10%. You can see it self-funds and generates a profit. And then the customer referral program, which we looked at. So you can see here, you can kind of see both at one time. Here's a $25,000 budget versus a $60,000 budget, right? Here, the revenue generated on the $25,000 budget was $50,000. Well, here, the revenue generated on the $60,000 budget was $117,000. What kind of profit is in that? There's a $27,000 profit versus $57,000 profit. And then here's the actual ROI. So you can see as you may not always make more money. Like I would probably argue if I was really trying to squeeze revenue out or profit out, then I would probably not do some of these things. Like I probably wouldn't do as much paper per lead. I would go with anything 100% or more. Basically, I'd do that one, that one, that one, that one, and that one. I probably would not do yellow pages, but then you're not in the yellow pages, so it's kind of up to you. But these are the kind of the buckets that we look at. So do I have any questions on this, or everybody still with me? All right. Well, cool. Everybody's still with me. Good. All right. Let me go back to my little presentation here. We looked at that. We looked at that. We looked at that. Okay. So in closing, we got about 5 minutes, so I'm going to just go ahead and start wrapping it up here. During this series, we cover a lot of stuff, and it should help you grow your business, be successful. But you just have to think about marketing as an investment, and you need to make sure that you measure everything. It's just one of those things where if you don't measure it, you could find that you're inversely spending a lot of money on things that just don't generate a yield. Like if all your money was on paper, pay-per-click, the Google ads, you could see from our example back here, you would actually be, where am I? Your ROI would not be where it needs to be. So you got to have a right mix. Since we're got a few minutes left, I'm going to, we've got this presentation, we've got the PDF, we've got the Excel file we built for you, this budget. It'll be on intomarketing.com/Monitronics. Our phone number is there, and in any way you want to contact us, of course, we're here to help. I just want to, before I turn it back over to Morgan, I want to thank you guys for, a lot of you have attended all 6, and I just want to thank you for being on the call, and I thank you for sticking with us, and we really wish you the best of luck in your business. Morgan?
Yep, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody as well, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're happy to help. So.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for attending today, and hope you have a great rest of the afternoon.